Hi, this is Dr. John Bergsma from the St. Paul Center for Biblical Theology and the Franciscan University of Steubenville. And we're talking today about my book, Yes, There Is a God, and Other Answers to Life's Big Questions. My shortest book, but the hardest one I ever wrote, because I am attempting here to simply present reasons to believe in God and the gospel without using any religious language. And boy, when we talk about these things, we're so dependent on complicated terms like total abandonment to divine providence or a novena to the Immaculate Conception. And think about what those terms would mean to somebody who's not familiar with Catholic spiritual terminology. They'd be completely lost. So it's very difficult to explain everything in absolutely clear English, but had a great time working on it, and I'm really happy with how the book came out. We're reading today from chapter 2, talking about, Is There a God? And in this chapter, I present four main lines of, you might say, argument or evidence, use what term you will, that really I find intellectually persuasive to the fact that there is a personal, intelligent, all-powerful being who is at the origin of the universe that we are living in. So I'm going to read here from the beginning of the chapter and present the first argument. Is there a God? So is there a someone out there who put us here and has a plan for us? If so, there is probably a purpose for why we are here, and something we should be doing. If not, then we probably are here by accident, and we don't need to be doing anything in particular. Now, maybe you already believe in a God. Many people have a strong sense that God exists and don't need an argument or proof. One person I know came to believe in God just from looking at a beautiful tree in the fall. Another came to believe because he looked at his baby daughter's ear one day and saw how lovely it was. If you're the type of person who just knows in your heart there's a God, you might want to skip to the next chapter. However, if you're the more skeptical type who would like a reason to believe something, then this is the chapter for you. I'd like to offer some reasons to believe in God, and these reasons come from looking around us as we hurtle along on this rock that we call the Earth. Looking up. First, let's look up at the stars, planets, and galaxies above us. When we do this, we notice something strange. All the stars and galaxies are zooming away from us at high speed. The universe is expanding rapidly as we speak, and this has been going on for some time. That means that in the past, the universe was much smaller and everything was closer together. In fact, if we rewind time to the very beginning, we discover that the universe started as in a single incredibly small, incredibly compact point that just blew up many, many years ago, 14.5 billion years ago, if you are counting. Scientists call that blow up the Big Bang. It was the point when everything began to exist in a big explosion of energy. Not only did matter and energy start to exist, but according to Einstein, even time and space began to exist. Before the Big Bang, there was nothing. Nothing at all. No matter to touch, no energy to feel, not even space or time. Wow, that's hard to understand. That's what scientists tell us. Now, let's think about that. What caused the Big Bang? Common sense tells us something must have caused it. We know that things don't randomly appear out of nowhere for no reason, except in cartoons. So the Big Bang must have been caused by something. Can we figure out what? Well, whatever caused it must have been smart, because the universe we see around us is amazingly beautiful and complex. Nothing stupid could have caused it. Also, whatever caused it must have been very powerful. powerful enough to bring the whole universe into existence. Finally, whatever caused it must be outside space and time, because space and time did not exist before the Big Bang. So we need an incredibly smart, incredibly powerful being who is outside of space and time. And that's exactly how God has usually been defined: an all-wise, all-powerful creator, not bound by time or space. Okay, that's the first argument from chapter 2 of Yes, There Is a God and Other Answers to Life's Big Questions. Just discussing this a little bit, what I'm presenting here is what's classically called the cosmological argument for God's existence, the argument from the existence of all things. And it's summarized very nicely in a variety of ways. My favorite way that this argument is usually portrayed is called the Kalaam Argument, that being an Arabic term related to Arabic philosophers. We don't need to get into that. But anyway, the Kalaam Argument basically goes like this: whatever comes into existence has a cause other than itself. That seems self-evident, right? Things don't cause themselves. Things can't exist before they exist in order to cause themselves to exist. So whatever comes in existence has to be caused by something else that was previously in existence. That all makes sense. So again, first point, whatever comes to exist has a cause outside itself. Second point is the whole universe has come to exist. That's been demonstrated now by Big Bang arguments. And then the third step, or the conclusion, is this: therefore, the universe has a cause outside of itself. So I think that's pretty powerful, and there's a number of resources that we're going to put up on this video that you can go to look at for further reading on this whole topic. A popular response to try to get out of the implications of the Big Bang nowadays is the multiverse theory, that, well, okay, so our universe started, but maybe our universe is part of a big, eternal, never-ending cycle of universes. Well, I find that argument for multiverse rather ironic, because you know how much observational evidence we have for any other universe than our own? Big fat zero, goose egg. So I find this incredibly ironic from people who otherwise insist that you have to have empirical evidence for everything you believe. And those religious believers are so silly because they believe in things that we can't see, test, or put under a microscope or see in a telescope, etc. And then they come back with, oh yeah, but the multiverse theory, which we can't see, we can't investigate, we can't even theoretically know about it, because these other universes would be, physically separated in some way from ours. Okay, so I don't put a whole lot of stock in the multiverse. Furthermore, as various theoreticians point out, and I'm going to recommend Father Robert Spitzer here, and we're going to put up a link to one of his books. Even a multiverse would have to have a beginning that's necessitated by the reality that we call entropy, that all physical reality is winding down, and therefore you can't back physical reality up to some kind of infinite point in the past. So basically, it must have had a beginning somewhere, and that's argued at great length and very accurately by Father Spitzer and by others. So the multiverse theory really is not a way out of the implications of the Big Bang, that there is a beginning to this universe. One of my favorite books is by a rocket scientist of rocket scientists, Robert Jastrow, who during the 80s was the US's top rocket scientist. He actually ran NASA's theoretical division. I mean, that's like incredible. Not only are these guys rocket scientists, but like this is the most abstract, esoteric branch of, rocket science and all that fancy stuff. And Jastrow was the head of this, and he wrote a book that came out when I was a kid called God and the Astronomers. And in that book, he basically points out that most astronomers, including Einstein and others, resisted the Big Bang Theory because of its theistic implications. Not because of its scientific issues, but because of its theistic implications. Einstein and others did not like the fact that Big Bang math pointed to a beginning of the universe, and a beginning of the universe required a beginner, required a creator, and that implied a God. Sir Fred Hoyle, for example, the atheist top astronomer of Britain at the time, he really had contempt for this idea that the universe had a beginning. He's the one who actually came up with the term Big Bang. It began as a term of contempt. Sir Fred Hoyle just dismissed this idea as, oh, that's silly Big Bang idea. Well, the term stuck, and eventually even Hoyle himself had to concede that the evidence pointed to the fact that the universe had a beginning, and thus it really needs a beginner. So there's a lot of fun stuff that we could talk about here, but suffice it to say, modern cosmology, that is to say, modern theories of the universe, require the universe to have a beginning, and that really has theistic implications. That means it suggests that there is a creator, that there is a God. And that's a very powerful argument. And the scientific community resisted it, but had to concede to it. Now that it's been conceded, contemporary scientists like Richard Dawkins just forget about how momentous that was back in the 70s when the Big Bang became established, and everyone had to acknowledge a beginning to the universe with all the implications that had. And, modern writers just want to paper over that and forget what a sea change that was in intellectual history. But I'm not going to let them forget it, okay? I want to keep that on the table. That's a powerful line of reasoning that points to the existence of a God. So this has been Dr. John Bergsma talking about my book, Yes, There is a God, and Other Answers to Life's Big Questions. A lot of great material here, and we have some resources that we're going to make available to you if you want to go and do some further reading or watching in terms of videos on this subject. Hope you've enjoyed this, and till next time, God bless.